Everyone. Father Jared coming to you on this Thanksgiving Day. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there. Um, yeah, just maybe wanted to reflect today upon gratitude because, it's Thanksgiving. So obviously we should be thankful, but also it's Thanksgiving 2020. And I'm sure all of you have seen the memes if 2020 was this and it's the worst possible thing it could possibly be, so if 2020 was a canoe trip and a picture from the movie Deliverance and so on and so forth. And that made me think, yeah, it's been a really rough year. And I do not want to in any way suggest that, just like get over the difficulties that have been there. But instead, I think there is also, in looking at, the past year, we still have plenty of things to be thankful for. Still so many things, thankfully for myself. I've been able to keep my health and, I'm at my new assignment here at Holy Angels, which has been a great blessing and something I'm deeply, deeply grateful to the Lord for. But I also thought about what has 2020 taught me, and perhaps lessons that maybe I had learned in a small way, but were really driven home to me in the midst of the current situation we find ourselves in here in 2020 with the coronavirus and everything else that has gone on. And, I thought probably the first thing I learned is like I said, I've learned it before, but really driven home was one, my joy is not dependent upon other people, but instead only dependent upon Christ. What I mean is that we still obviously are meant to have friendships and the Lord desires for us to have close relationships. But something that I just learned within myself is that so often I measured my own level of joy, my own level of contentment based on how much people like me, on how much, they show care and all those sort of things towards me, like very, very self-centered, right? Instead, what I came to find was that intimacy with Christ, relationship with Him, not only gives me joy with Him and allows me to be content without those other things, but it also deepens the friendships I do have, the relationships I do have. That, the Lord obviously traveled with a band of brothers in some ways, His disciples and the women who followed Him and so on and so forth. And so He obviously meant for us to live in communion. That's one of the great insights of, the wisdom of the Catholic tradition of the communion of saints. That we have all these friends along with Jesus who travel with us. But it's ultimately in the Lord that we are going to find our joy. No single person here on this earth is going to make you happy. No amount of likes on social media is going to finally fill that hole that you have within your own soul. Only God can do that. And I think in the midst of this pandemic, that was really driven home to me. And then the second thing I learned, which is very much so related, is that friendship isn't about proximity, but instead intentionality. And what I mean by that is that in my own experience, that oftentimes friendships were dependent upon the people that I had around me, people I worked with, people I hung out with on my day off as a priest, and so on and so forth. And I think something that was taught to me in the middle of lockdowns and not being able to see people as much is that, if I wanted to continue to be friends with people, I had to call, text, write letters, so on and so forth. Maintain those connections. And I had to be the primary motive. Again, going back to that first point, about, other people are not responsible for my joy, or my joy is not dependent upon other people. Same way, friendships are not dependent upon the other person, reaching out to me, but instead I have to intentionally go out to them. I have to be willing to do that. If friendship actually matters to me, then I need to be the one who reaches out. And I think the pandemic lockdown did teach me that. And so again, this is not at all meant to lessen the impact that this has all had. And this then brings me to the third point, which kind of encapsulates those first two. Every trial, every suffering, and every difficulty is an opportunity. I think so often we look at the difficulties we face, we look at the trials that are before us, and we can begin to grumble, get upset, moan, whatever it is. The reality of the matter is that only we can decide that, you know what, it's tough, it stinks, it's difficult, I'm in pain, maybe physically, emotionally, but I can either decide to get bitter and resentful about that, or I can decide, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from the fact that I can't be in proximity to people? Well, maybe I can learn that I can pick up the phone and call. Maybe I can write that letter, which is maybe even a lesson today, because I'm sure on Thanksgiving, many of you out there have had your normal Thanksgiving traditions altered, completely removed, whatever it may be. And so that's tough. That stinks. And I'd use other words, but we're on YouTube and I'm a priest, so probably not a good idea. But we still can learn from it. You can still pick up that phone and call someone. You can write a letter to someone you haven't made contact with in years. You can maybe even try to figure out and learn how you maybe can reconcile with family members that you usually dreaded seeing at Thanksgiving. There's an opportunity. Every cross, every suffering, every difficulty is an opportunity to learn something, for us to grow, become less selfish, less bitter, less jealous, so on and so forth. It's an opportunity. And I think those three things that I've learned, that my joy is not dependent upon other people, but upon Christ, number one. Number two, friendships are not about proximity, but instead about intentionality. And then number three, difficulties, trials, sufferings are opportunities. And ultimately opportunities to probably grow in holiness. So take advantage of all that. That's a couple things I'm thankful for this Thanksgiving. I hope maybe you can come up with your own list of things that, even in the midst of a lot of difficulties, a lot of upheaval, a lot of just difficult stuff, because man, people are suffering. And so I do not want to undermine any of that. I do not want to say like, hey, just get over it. What I do want to say is that we can always find a reason to be grateful to our Lord, to our God, who truly does love us, even in the midst of the difficulties, even in the midst of the muck, the mess that is life, that is human existence. There's so much to be thankful for, so much to be grateful for. So I just encourage you to find those things you're thankful for even today, Thanksgiving 2020.